Hello, parents and guardians of my Enrichment RtI group. Since I never get the opportunity to speak face-to-face with you, I wanted to create this website and this video to explain to you what your student will be learning in their time with me. Students will be creating their own literacy inquiries and exploring throughout their inquiry to create a real-life product. Now, I have utilized the connected learning model as a way to design this instruction and this time together. Now, there are 6 components of connected learning. First of all, students' work will be interest-powered. They will get to explore something that they are personally interested in. It will be peer-supported as students work with someone or a group of people in the classroom. It will be academically oriented as students will be reading, writing, researching, developing, and creating their own literature. It will have a shared purpose. That means that students will be researching something that applies to the real world. It applies to others outside of just our classroom and is something important to many people. It will be openly networked. Students will be able to access their work anywhere in the world, and students will be sharing their progress online so that others can view it. Finally, it will be product centers as students will be creating an authentic real-world product. To introduce this course and this time together to your students, I will spend the first 2 weeks introducing digital skills and what an inquiry is. On week 1, I will introduce 5 digital skills: permanence, online networking, netiquette, copyright, and privacy. Now, these align with the ISTE standards. ISTE are the International Technology Standards, and we'll be looking at those standards for students. First of all, students will learn how permanent information is that they put online. This is an important life skill to learn. Next, students will learn how to communicate positively with others online and how to do so safely, especially with our blogging. Students will learn about copyright and how to give credit where credit is due during their researching. And finally, students will learn about creating accounts and strong passwords as we will be utilizing many tech tools. During week 2, I will introduce to students what an inquiry is. I will go over these 5 lessons. What is an inquiry? How will they share their learning? How will they give and receive feedback? Where will they find their resources? And how will they create products? During this time, we will be accomplishing the Illinois Social Studies Inquiry Skills Standards. You can click on this link to read about those. And going to those ISTE standards, students will be learning about blogging as a way to connect with classmates, families, and those around the world. Students will also be learning a variety of tech tools in order to create original creations. And I will be providing resources and support through our class Edmodo account for students. During phase 1, students will create their actual inquiry design plan. Now, I've explained this for you here and given a real example of what this might look like, but I wanted to go ahead and look at this plan with you. So I have it opened in a separate window that I can showcase for you. First of all, students will be creating a compelling question. That compelling question is something that makes students think deeply and take a side on some kind of issue, problem, whatever it may be. Here they're identifying who they're going to work with, and here they're identifying that shared purpose piece. How does what they are researching apply to others around the world? Why is it important? In order to answer that compelling question, students will create 3 supporting questions that go from broad to more specific, leading to an answer to that compelling question. In order to do this, students will identify 3 sources at least for each supporting question. They will use our school library, community libraries, online sources in order to find these sources and identify who will read these. Students will be jigsawing so that they're not all completing every source, but having to really take notes and be able to explain to other group members so they can grasp the concepts. For each supporting question, students will create a checkpoint plan or a mini product that will showcase to me that they have indeed answered their 3 supporting questions. My goal here is that students are really thinking deeply about what they're exploring and not just trying to get through the product. I don't want to see students completing this in one day. This should be a full 6-week unit. In terms of argument, students will be taking a side and creating that claim with their reasons and evidence for it and presenting that in a multimodal text. Multimodal means that they're going to have pictures, video, sound, everything put together in a way that showcases that argument, not on a piece of paper. Or I shouldn't say not on a piece of paper, but not in written format, as here's my claim, here's my reasons, here's my evidence, but instead they're presenting it some way that is a little more engaging, a little more deep, and can be shared with the real world. Finally, and most importantly, students will be taking informed action. So for example, last year I had a student who decided to research on dieting, and they decided that they would create posters as some of the toilet talk that goes on the back or on the inside of bathroom stalls that explained all about dieting and the harmful and positive effects on it and kind of showcase their learning from that. Finally, there will be a timeline where students will showcase how they're going to get this work done in the 6 weeks. Now, as they do that, they are going to be hitting some of those connected learning components. They're going to be peer supported as they work with peers inside and outside the classroom, utilizing their blogs to get feedback. Shared purpose will occur in that inquiry design plan when they identify how it applies to others. We'll be openly networked as we utilize those blogs to give and receive feedback, academically oriented as students complete those social studies standards. Now, in order to, in connection with our ISTE standards, students will be developing a plan with personal learning goals, and they will identify how they're going to achieve them. Students will build a network. One thing they will be required to do is to connect with an expert in the field and utilize them as a source, as well as just those resources online or in actual text. Students will develop this inquiry design plan, and as they're receiving feedback, they'll be expected to change based on that feedback. Here, students will identify sources that are relevant and apply to their questions. And finally, they're developing a real plan that explores a real issue. In phase 2, that researching actually begins. And again, they will be jigsawing that research. In terms of those connected learning components, it will be academically oriented as students use their research skills. It will be peer supported as they jigsaw those sources with their groups or with their partner. They will not both read the same source. Instead, they will divide and conquer that learning. Students will post updates of their work on their blog and receive feedback from others for openly networked. In terms of those ISTE standards, students will be using their research strategies. Students will be determining if sources are credible or not credible. Students will be synthesizing their learning. Students will be researching that real-world issue. They'll be connecting with experts in the field and will be required to be a meaningful group member so that they can really share that workload. Moving on into phase 3, the argument phase, students will be developing the argument, and as I mentioned before, it will be in a multimodal text. I do not want to simply see a written claim with their reasons and evidence. Instead, I want them utilizing a tech tool to showcase that argument in a more engaging way for their audience. Again, those connected learning components will be peer supported as students work with their groups, receiving feedback and discussing their arguments with others. It will be openly networked as they receive that feedback from classmates, and it will be product-centered as students actually create that real multimodal text to represent their argument. In terms of our ISTE standards, there will be a lot of choice as students choose that appropriate tech tool in order to best communicate their message, and it will be an original work that students are creating. Our final phase is that product, where they will be taking the informed action. Based on all of their learning, they're going to create something that they can actually share with the world. This will again be peer supported as they work together. They will share their kind of draft of their product on their Edmodo page, receive feedback from it, and then evolve one final time before posting it on their blog for the real world, hitting that openly networked step. And then it will again be product centered as they are creating an authentic product to showcase their learning. Now, on top of those two ISTE standards that I discussed for phase 3, those remain the same. We will also bring in Creative Communicator 6D, where students will create a product with their audience in mind. So they're going to determine, am I trying to communicate this message with other students in my school, students around the world, with parents? Who is it that I'm trying to communicate with? Now, again, I hope that this gives you an overview of the learning that we're doing, since I do never get the opportunity to actually meet with you. You, of course, can go to this website at any time and read in more depth those components. And, of course, reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns. I really look forward to this year with your student.